And welcome to the Ask Biz Show. This is a special week as I celebrated 2 years of quitting my job yesterday, or last Thursday, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But so, what is the Ask Biz Show? The Ask Biz Show is a chance every Monday for me to come on and talk about business, and maybe for you to ask some questions and see if we can't help each other be better. Why do I do it? Because ideas are free, and so it doesn't cost me anything to do this, but hopefully it's helpful to you as you grow your business. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to the Jackson Generals because they won their 81st game of the season this weekend, which puts them over the franchise record of for 80 wins was the franchise record, I think. So congratulations to them, and I'm really excited about watching them in the postseason this year. Might be able to bring the Southern Cup, the Southern League Championship Cup to Jackson, which would be pretty great. So last Thursday was the 2-year anniversary of me quitting my job. First of all, I have to thank my wife for being awesome and allowing me to do that. She has been the most supportive person that I could have hoped for in this. But as I was thinking about 2 years have gone by since I've quit my job and started really pursuing this business, I want to share a couple of things that I've learned about entrepreneurship. And the first one is to bring the boat closer to the dock. Now, what do I mean by that? Because I'm obviously in an office and not on a pier. But if you bring the boat closer to the dock, there's two things. There's one is to test the product and prove that it'll sell, and two is to build up the business first. And so first you test the product. So a lot of people will tell you that your idea, your product is a great idea. They would love to buy it. But these people are probably your family and friends, and they won't necessarily go through with that when the time comes. And so it's important to test the product before you start making large bets on it. Can you sell small versions of it? Could you sell a little bit of it? Could you set up a food truck maybe instead of a full restaurant? Or maybe you could, instead of quitting your job and working in a retail spot full time, maybe you could just do some pop-up shops and prove that business model to people who, to yourself really, to prove that business model with people that may not be people that you know, because your family and friends want to support you, and that's great. Most of us would not be where we are today without family and friends. I wouldn't. But when it comes to financial transactions, you need support from a lot of people who aren't your family and friends. So start by testing the idea small. Make sure strangers are willing to pay you for what you're wanting to do. The second thing is to build up your business first. And this is really the key to bringing the boat closer to the dock. Start with a small amount of business, and then work really hard in your free time from your other jobs to build up the income that's coming in from your business to prove that it's going to work. This takes longer than people want to do it because we're Americans, most of us, and human nature is saying, just do it right now. What I would encourage you to do is to do your job well, but then make time either before work or after work to work on that business idea consistently for several months and grow it so that when you make that jump and quit your job and go full-time in the business, it's not as painful. Now, I wish I would have done more of this, but the environment at the job I was at had grown so toxic that it might have been dangerous to my health to stay there any longer. And so I made the jump before I should have. But if ideally, I would have just really kicked it in gear and worked a lot harder in my off hours than I was for my business, and then made that jump once I've got some momentum. Because to be honest, we had to dig into our emergency fund to fund when I first left my regular job to start my business. And so though by 3 months in we knew it was going to be successful, it really took 6 months for the income to start coming in to offset the loss of that job. So I fortunately had a supportive wife who was also working, and not everybody has that flexibility. So be sure to count the cost before you make that jump. But I would encourage you to bring the boat closer to the dock. The second thing I want to say is the dip is real. Now, if you haven't heard of the phrase the dip, you probably haven't read anything by Seth Godin. But the dip is after the excitement of starting a business or making a big sale, there is an inevitable dip where things are less exciting, maybe you haven't sold anything in a little bit, or maybe you don't sell anything right away. But for almost everybody, there's a way out of the dip. And it just takes time, really, most of the time. And so the dip is one of the hardest things to deal with, especially if you're not working in community. I fortunately am in a co-working space, and so I have lots of people doing the similar type things around me, so they've experienced the dip and they know how to get through it. But the dip is a real thing. This podcast Startup, which I'd really recommend listening to the first season, and really just the first season, it's the best one. They call it the trough of sorrow. And so just to get a feeling of how severe this feeling is for people, it will make you want to quit being an entrepreneur. And I've had friends that have come up against that, and some of them haven't been able to conquer it. But the dip is something that is real. And so even if you're excited about starting your business right now, it may be 2 weeks, it may be 3 weeks, it may be 4 weeks, but you will hit the dip, and the dip will be you'll either be too tired to do anything, or you'll be too emotionally drained to try to continue. And so be ready for the dip. Know that it's coming, and be ready for it. And the last thing that I would tell to people who want to become entrepreneurs is the answer is always yes. And so one of the quotes that I really hung on to as I was starting this business, also I learned about through Seth Godin, is by Leonard Bernstein, and he says, I'm no longer quite sure what the question is, but I do know that the answer is yes. And so what that means to me is, if I've got a client who maybe wants something that's a little bit out of my wheel well, or something that we hadn't talked about before, maybe something I'm not super good at, I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to make it happen, because for two reasons. One, I want to be completely indispensable to my clients, and two, I can learn a lot of things, or maybe I need to hire a subcontractor to do it. If I say yes, it gives me an opportunity. If I say no, I lose that opportunity. And being an entrepreneur is all about capitalizing on opportunities that you come across. So I'm no longer quite sure what the question is, but I do know that the answer is yes. And so that is something that I will live by for a very long time. And especially in the startup stage of a business, you can't turn anything down. You've got to eat, you got to live. Now, as you get a little bit more established, you can be a little bit more picky and choosy. But I'm not there yet, and most of you probably aren't either. And so those are the top 3 things that I would recommend to people who are starting their own businesses. I hope that is helpful. And if you are starting your own business, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you about what you are doing and how you're doing it, because marketing is way more than just logos and graphics. It's thought processes and thinking about how to do things and how to build systems, and I can help you do that. So if you have questions for the next Ask Biz show, you can look on my Facebook page or follow us on Twitter. If you use that hashtag AskBizShow, you can submit things via Twitter. This will be put this full video up later today, and then again later in the week, so check that out. And then you can sign up for my monthly marketing email for some more free knowledge once a month that comes from my website. So thank y'all for listening, and best of luck as you start your businesses.